Hello and welcome to this video, and in this video I'm going to be talking through 5 tips for beginners to triathlon. I think it is one of those sports that can feel really daunting to get into, and if you're new to it all and there's so much to take in, and it can be overwhelming. So I'm gonna go through 5 tips of the things that I think would be really helpful for someone who's just getting into triathlon and maybe a bit nervous or doesn't know where to start, and things that I think really helped me and hopefully will help you. So yeah, let's get into it. So number 1 is gonna be, don't overcomplicate your training. So if you're just new to getting into triathlon, it's worthwhile looking at your week and looking at what's going to be achievable for you in terms of training volume. How many hours can you commit to your training? Now that may be 3 hours, that may be 5 hours, that it is going to be different for everyone. And I think the main thing that you need to do, especially if you're a beginner, is not compare yourself to other people who maybe, you see all these pro athletes that you may follow, or you may follow someone who's maybe been doing it a couple of years and is a bit more advanced than you, and they're saying, they're doing 15-20 hours of training a week, and you're thinking, where the hell am I going to find 15 to 20 hours in my week? So first thing is just look at your week and see what's going to be achievable. That may be that you've got an hour on a Sunday, you might have Thursday mornings free, and you might have Tuesday evening after work free. Cool, so start there, or block out somewhere to swim, bike and run across the week. And then once you've got into the routine of that, and learning how to maybe manage your time a little bit better, so you can start to fit in a little bit more training into your diary. But I think the main thing to know is that when you're a beginner, just doing something is going to be enough to help you improve, and then you can add and ramp up your volume, rather than going from nothing to 20 hours a week. It's just not necessary, and you'll very quickly get injured, become fatigued, fall out of love with it. Just start steady and build up, and don't compare your training to anyone else. So number 2 is, you do not need all the equipment to start. Triathlon equipment is an absolute minefield. There is so much, and you could spend hundreds of thousands of pounds if you got everything and the best quality of everything. And let's be honest, if it's just a hobby or just something you're getting into, the last thing you want to do is spend a fortune on equipment. And I definitely didn't invest really any money initially when I first started. And I remember, and I'll try and put a picture on the screen, I did my first triathlon on a mountain bike. I borrowed a tri-suit and I did the run in some shorts and a t-shirt, so I got changed in transition, or maybe I put a t-shirt over my tri-suit because it wasn't a proper tri-suit with sleeves, I can't remember. But yeah, the main thing was that I didn't buy myself a tri-suit, I didn't buy myself a bike. I think I borrowed my mum's helmet, and I think I borrowed my dad's sunglasses, which, looking back at the pictures again, I look like an idiot, but I was just doing it because I just wanted to give it a go, and I didn't have the clip-in shoes on the bike or anything. And it's so easy, when I then started to get into a bit more training and get into more races and stuff, you see other people and you're like, oh my god, they look like pros and I look like a fucking amateur. And it's okay to look like an amateur, because these people may have been into triathlon a lot longer than you and have spent time building up their equipment and investing in themselves, in their bikes, in their helmets, in their shoes, whatever it is. So you don't need to have everything at first. What I would say to just start off with, I mean, if you can rent a bike for your first race, then I would do that. Or if you can borrow a friend, or if you've just got an old bike, starting to train on that, and maybe training on the bike in the gym if you've got a gym membership, and rather than investing in buying yourself a watt bike and a road bike and the fanciest helmet and the fanciest glasses. And yeah, just remember that you don't need to have it all. I've only recently bought myself a bike. I bought it a couple of months ago. I did my first half Ironman on a bike that I rented because I didn't have my own, and then prior to that I was just borrowing my mum's old bike to do all of my training on. And so you don't have to go and spend thousands and thousands of pounds, because all of us have just disposable income to just chuck at a hobby. So build up over time. Don't feel as though you need all the fanciest equipment to start off with, and yeah, no one's judging you for the equipment that you have. So stick to the basics and build from there. Number 3 is, start with doing some local races. Now, the shorter, smaller, more local races are always going to be that little bit more friendly. You know, those sort of more local races are literally designed for beginners, for people who are just getting into the sport and just want to try a race out, and that's what those races are there for. And they're so friendly. So my first one I did not far from home, didn't have to travel very far to get to it, a couple hundred people, and then the second one I did was literally the start line is across the road from me. It's really, really close. And I think as well, like obviously, as I was just saying in point number 2, like triathlon can be a really, really expensive sport, so you don't want to be spending loads of money traveling to, you know, really far away, or spending loads of money on staying in hotels the night before races, things like that. And I think all of those things can come later down the line if you know, decide to travel abroad to do a race or whatever, which I think is a really cool experience. But if you're just getting into it, like those local races, the smaller ones are the best, and I still love doing those ones, even though I've been doing some sort of bigger races and stuff abroad. Some of the smaller races are the best. The community there, like everyone's really like cheering everyone on, and everyone is so friendly. So I really think it's worthwhile entering some smaller races and just getting to grips with everything, and not spending an absolute fortune on race fees, because some of the bigger races, and I guess the bigger brands such as Ironman, like their entry fees are extortionate. Whereas some of these local ones, you know, you can enter for maybe 40 quid, and yeah, they're really nice atmosphere, you get some nice people there, and you know, some other beginners there, and everyone's really supportive. Also, like on that point, like as a sub point, is that you also don't have to like enter the really long races. Like the shorter ones are challenging in themselves, so don't feel as though because you're not entering like a standard distance or a half Ironman or a full Ironman that you know, you're not good at a triathlon or anything like that. Like they are challenging in themselves, so just start with the short stuff, and if you want to build up the distance, then that's cool. But if you stick with just doing the shorter stuff, like that is also cool as well, because you have to push yourself hard on those shorter distances. So they are challenging in their own right. So don't think, oh, I'm not doing an Ironman or half Ironman, I'm not pushing myself. Like you absolutely are. So just find the distance that works for you, give stuff a try, and yeah, see what works for you. But I definitely wouldn't recommend traveling too far with all your equipment and with all the expenses and things like that. Like just get to grips with doing some local races, and then, you know, expand from there. Number 4 is, as you increase your training volume and as the hours start to creep up with your training, you will find that you'll become very, very hungry. Training for a triathlon uses a hell of a lot of fuel, of energy, so it's really important to be fueling yourself in the right way. And it's what I found is when I was training for my half Ironman was hungry all the time, so I just wanted to graze and snack and pick at everything all the time, and I actually ended up seeing my scale weight going up. I actually gained weight whilst training for a half Ironman, because in my head I was like, oh well, I'm burning all this food and I can eat all these calories, I can have that, which for the majority you can have that. But if you're getting in from a training session and then just grazing and snacking and picking, you're not refueling yourself properly, and also you're just adding in a high amount of dense calorie foods and not really getting the benefit from them. They're not filling you up, they're not refueling you for your upcoming sessions. So whilst it's absolutely okay, and probably the best part of triathlon is you can get away with eating a lot of food and cakes and you know, biscuits, you know, stopping for cake on your long rides, all of those things, like it's amazing because you're using so much fuel, like you need to refuel. Just remember that refueling with like the correct nutrition is also really important for helping you recover from your training, for helping you perform better in your upcoming training sessions or races or whatever. And yeah, just making sure your body's in the best position possible, because if we're not refueling properly, we'll find that we're tired, we're fatigued, it may sort of increase our risk of injury or illness. So making sure that after each session, I would say having something sort of prepared, or having a meal like in mind what you're going to have. So something protein based, a load of carbohydrates to refuel you, so whether that's rice or pasta or wraps or whatever, and making sure to get lots of nutrients in as well. But yeah, definitely protein and plenty of carbs, and then a bit of what you fancy as well, because that's important too. But yeah, hunger levels will be high, so you can afford to eat that bit more, but make sure you're also refueling with some goodness as well. And finally, number 5 is that it is okay to be a beginner. I think I cannot stress that enough. Like, just because you're a beginner, like, that's not a bad thing. Actually, being a beginner is probably like the most exciting part of the journey, because you have so much to learn and you know you are going to progress so much. So I think it's really important to try and avoid like comparing yourself to people who've been doing it longer than you, and something that I did find myself doing a lot. And because I'm such a competitive person, I like to push myself a lot, and looking up to some of the pros, I'm like, oh my god, how do they possibly swim at that pace, or how do they possibly run at that pace? And you know, you get in your own head. So I think it's so important to admire and look up to these people who have been doing it longer than you, but equally don't compare yourself to those people, because you'll only end up feeling shit about yourself. Like, to put it bluntly, it will just bring you down and sort of make you think like, I'm nowhere near that level, so what's the point in trying? It's your race, it's your journey, it's like you versus you, and you trying to be better than you were, you know, the previous day, the previous week. So make sure to keep that in mind, because it will make it so much more enjoyable. And as I said, the beginning part of your journey is probably the most exciting bit, because you've got so much to learn and your fitness can only get better. And actually, when you get to a point where you've been doing it for a couple of years, those improvements become less and less. The PBs sort of come less and less, and you know, you might knock off the odd like second off your 5k PB every couple of months, but you know, when you're seeing those PBs sort of week in, week out, as you're building, as you're getting fitter and stronger, like, it's really, really exciting. You've got so much to learn, and so many new experiences. So yeah, just remember that it's okay to be a beginner. It's not a bad thing. It's a really exciting time, and you can learn so much and achieve so much. Yeah, they are 5 of my tips for people just getting into triathlon. I mean, there's so many more, I would say, and if there's any that like you also have, maybe put them in the comments below for anyone else watching this video, to give them a bit of advice. But yeah, let me know your feedback on some of the things that I've said, and thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day, whatever you're up to, and I will be posting some more content very soon. So thanks for watching, talk to you soon.